The floor turns cold first, then the drip starts. A dry tent can become a wet trap in one storm. Water hits the fly, then finds the weakest mistake. Most campers blame the fabric and miss the real cause. This trick starts with one cheap item and one setup fix. Cheap tarp clips change how the rainfly handles water. One clip goes on each low sag point of the fly. Each clip pulls the fly away from the inner wall. The gap is what keeps drips from forming above the bed. A sagging fly lets water sit, pool, and push inward. A tight fly sheds rain fast instead of holding it. The clips work best with short cord and a low stake. Clip the outer fly only, never the inner body fabric. Pull each side down and out, not straight to the ground. That angle helps rain run off instead of hanging there. Add tension until the panel looks smooth, not stretched hard. $2 can turn a floppy fly into a hard shell. That is the first part of staying dry all night. The second part is the ground under the tent. If the footprint sticks out, rain gets guided underneath. That looks harmless until the floor starts feeling soaked. Any extra tarp edge becomes a water tray in the dark. Tuck every bit of ground sheet fully under the tent floor. No plastic edge should be visible past the base. That single mistake ruins more nights than bad weather. Now the setup gets simple, visual, and easy to copy. The tent body should sit tight and flat on the ground. Footprint tucked fully under every corner. Rainfly clipped and pulled away from the tent body. Top vents cracked open even when the rain starts. That last part sounds wrong until the ceiling starts dripping. Many so-called leaks are not leaks at all. They are warm breath hitting a cold, wet fly. The moisture forms inside and drops right back down. That fake leak fools a lot of campers every season. A tiny vent opening can stop that trap from building. Dry air moving through the shelter beats trapped heat. The goal is dry airflow, not sealed wet air. Sealed wet air turns a tent into its own cloud. That is why tents drip, even when the seams look fine. 3 things stop the nightmare before it starts. Clips for tension, tucked footprint, and cracked vents. Most rain disasters come from skipping one of those. The first warning sign is a soft fly panel. If the fly is touching mesh, trouble is already close. If water is beating but not rolling off, fix the tension. If the floor edge feels cold and slick, check the tarp. If the roof mists inside, open the vent more. Those signs show up before a full midnight mess. The smart move happens before the bedding gets wet. A soaked bag is not the moment to start learning. Pack 2 tarp clips and 2 short cords every trip. They weigh almost nothing and solve a stupid big problem. Keep them in the tent bag, not in a gearbox. Rain problems get expensive when the tiny fix stays home. One clean setup can save the whole night. The full guide in the description shows the exact layout. It breaks down stake angles, clip position, and vent settings. It also shows the rain setup that works in real storms. That matters when the dark hides every dumb mistake. Back to the roof, because this is where nights get ruined. Rain does not need a hole to make a mess. It only needs sag, pressure, and bad airflow. A loose fly holds water where it should never stay. Once enough weight builds, drips start forming in the wrong spots. That is why clip placement matters more than brute force. Low corners and weak side panels need help first. Pull water away from the center of the sleeping area. Never let the lowest sag sit above the head or chest. Even a small drip feels huge at 3 in the morning. Now look at the base again before the storm worsens. Water under the floor feels exactly like a bad leak. But the roof can be perfect, and the floor still floods. That is why the cheap trick is only half the answer. The real win is the full dry system working together. High spot under the tent always beats the low pretty spot. Flat ground is fine until runoff changes direction. A shallow dip can turn into a bathtub fast. Pitch slightly higher whenever the site gives that option. Dry nights start before the first drop even lands. Cheap clip, clean pitch, and dry sleep through the storm. After the first setup, the next killer is bad placement. Rain always finds the lazy campsite choice. The low ground looks flat until water starts moving at night. A slight bowl in the dirt can drown a dry floor fast. Set the tent on the highest patch the site allows. Even a small rise can redirect a lot of runoff. Then face the narrow end into the wind when possible. That keeps the fly steadier and the panels less sloppy. A flapping fly loses shape and collects trouble. Still air with wet breath creates another problem. Condensation can drip hard enough to look like roof failure. The inside gets wet, but the source is trapped moisture. That is why vents stay cracked unless the storm is violent. A tiny opening beats a sealed steam box every time. Wet jackets inside make the problem even worse. Boots, socks, and soaked towels all feed the ceiling. Move wet gear to the vestibule whenever possible. Keep the sleeping zone for dry gear only. The less moisture inside, the fewer fake leaks form. Now for the part most people skip until damage appears. Real leaks usually start at seams, corners, or floorware. If water comes through the same spot every storm, inspect it. Peeling seam tape and worn floor coating need attention. A cheap field fix is useless if the seam is dead. Brush on seam sealer before the trip, not during panic. Check the fly corners, roof seams, and floor perimeter first. Those areas take the hardest abuse in bad weather. A worn floor can pass water upward under body weight. That feels exactly like ground seepage from outside. So the test matters before blaming the storm. Dry paper towel on the suspect spot tells the truth fast. If the towel wets from above, the roof is the problem. If it wets from below, the base is the problem. That one check stops dumb guessing in the dark. Now back to the cheap clip trick that starts the fix. Tarp clips are not for brute force or huge tension. They are for restoring shape where the fly sags most. Clip near the low panel, then pull to a clean angle. Short cord holds better than long, floppy cord. A deep angle down and out sheds water faster. Too much pull can distort the fly and make it worse. Smooth and taut beats tight and twisted. The goal is clean runoff and clean airflow. Another smart move is checking the fly after 10 minutes. Nylon often relaxes after the first hit of rain. What looked tight at sunset can sag by dark. A quick retension saves hours of drip torture. That 2-minute check changes the whole night. People lose sleep because they trust the first setup too much. Rain is patient and fabric always moves. If the clips hold shape, the water keeps moving. If the water keeps moving, the dry zone stays alive. If the dry zone stays alive, the bag stays warm. That chain is why the setup matters so much. A wet sleeping bag turns a normal night into misery fast. Cold follows moisture every single time. That is why this matters as more than simple comfort. It is a real off-grid survival quality upgrade. The guide in the description covers the exact storm layout. It shows clip distance, cord length, and vent openings. It also shows the emergency version for cheap tents. That version matters when the fly has weak stake points. Some tents fail because the stock angles are terrible. A small adjustment can fix what the factory ignored. That does not mean every leak is user error. Some cheap tents really are built badly. But even bad tents perform better when the fly stays off. And even good tents fail when the base is wrong. That is why the full system beats one magic item. Clip the fly, tuck the base, crack the vents, then check seams before the weather checks them for you. The middle of the night is too late for maintenance. Now imagine the usual disaster scene most campers know. Rain gets louder and the roof starts touching the mesh. A cold drop lands right near the pillow in the dark. Another drop hits the bag near the knees. The floor edge starts feeling slick by the wall. That is the exact chain this setup is meant to stop. Not with luck, but with better shape and better drainage. The storm can stay ugly without ruining the shelter. Drier roof, drier floor, and warmer sleep until sunrise. The final piece is knowing when the storm changes the plan. Some nights need prevention, and some nights need damage control. If water is already inside, stop the spread before sleeping again. Use a dry cloth on the ceiling and walls first. Removing moisture early slows the next round of drips. Then, check whether the fly is touching the inner body. If it is touching, pull that panel away immediately. That one contact point can drip for hours. Next, check the floor corners and wall base. Pooled water outside loves the lowest edge of the tub floor. If the footprint slipped out, fold it back under fast. Then move gear away from the wet side of the tent. Keep the dry bag and insulation in the safest zone. A dry core matters more than dry spare clothes. If the site is truly flooding, a better spot beats pride. Moving the tent once is better than soaking all night. The prettiest campsite is useless when runoff owns it. That is why site choice still outranks gear tricks. But the cheap trick buys margin when the site is not perfect. It gives the rainfly shape when cheap poles and wet fabric sag. It keeps drips from forming above the sleeping area. It helps weak tents act less weak in real weather. That is exactly why this video can save a bad night. The item is cheap, but the payoff is massive. Most people wait until they hear the first drip. That is already too late for the easy win. Dry camping starts while the sky still looks harmless. Set the shape early and let the storm hit that shape. One more mistake wrecks a lot of tents after the trip. People pack them wet and leave them rolled up for days. That kills coatings, invites mildew, and weakens the seams. Then the next rain gets blamed for old neglect. Dry the fly and floor as soon as the weather breaks. Inspect the seams before the tent goes back in the bag. If tape is peeling or coating feels sticky, fix it. Waterproofing is boring until the ceiling starts dripping. Then it suddenly becomes the only thing that matters. A 5-minute check at home beats a ruined night outside. Cheap clips help tonight, maintenance helps every trip after. That is the difference between a trick and a full system. The guide in the description gives the full repeatable system. It covers storm pitch, seam checks, vent strategy, and runoff. It also shows the backup setup for footprints and tarps. That is the part most people never learn until failure. A dry night usually looks simple from the inside. But outside, every angle and gap is doing hidden work. That hidden work keeps the roof from turning on you. That hidden work keeps the floor from becoming a sponge. That hidden work keeps warm sleep from turning cold. So this is the closing checklist before lights out. Clip the low sag points on the rainfly panels first. Pull them down and out with short cord and low stakes. Retention after the first rain if the fabric loosens. Tuck every edge of the footprint under the base. Pitch on the highest ground the site allows. Keep vents cracked so wet air can leave. Keep soaked gear out of the sleeping zone. Check seams and floor wear before the trip. Reposition fast if runoff starts owning the site. That is how a cheap fix becomes an all-night result. No mystery item and no fake survival theater. Just cleaner runoff, less trapped moisture, and better shape. That combination stops a lot of so-called leaks, and it exposes the leaks that are actually real. Once the fake leaks are gone, the real weak spot shows up. That is how the tent finally gets fixed for good. A better night starts with a better diagnosis. A better diagnosis starts with this setup. Cheap clip, dry roof, dry floor, warm bag. That is a stupidly strong trade for $2. Storm outside, dry pocket inside the shelter all night. That is the only result that matters at midnight. When the rain keeps hammering and the dark gets loud, the dry sleeper is usually the one who shaped the shelter, not the one with the most expensive logo on the tent. Cheap skill humiliates expensive gear all the time. That is why this trick is worth packing every trip. Small item, hard result, no miserable surprise. Use it before the first leak, not after the third. That is how the night stays yours instead of the storm. That is how the rain stays outside where it belongs.